Hi, I'm Mike Stephen and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about cruiser bikes or townies or comfort bikes. They're called a lot of different things, but we're going to explain what makes them that style of bike and why they might appeal to maybe some of the crowd that doesn't consider themselves hardcore bikers but love to get out there and love to ride a bike. First off, the first thing I'm going to talk about on this bike is something that is very unique to the Townie. The Townie has what's called flat foot technology. And flat foot technology is simply that the seat tube is on a very steep angle and it allows the rider to be behind the pedals by quite a distance. What that allows is the rider to get full pedal extension when riding the bike, but when they stop at a stop sign, they can put their feet flat on the ground. They call it flat foot technology. So basically, by adjusting the dimensions or the geometry of the seat tube where the bottom bracket is positioned and lengthening that whole drivetrain, they can actually put the seat on a steeper angle, giving you full leg extension, but allowing you to sit on the seat and be flat-footed at a stop sign. So it's one of those features that just allows you to be more comfortable on the bike. You pull up to a stop sign and you don't have to worry about straddling over a bar or getting off the seat. You can just kind of put your feet down onto the ground comfortably. So that's a really neat feature that the Townie has. Some of the other neat things that are on this one, color match fenders, so they look pretty fancy. Looks really clean with the bike. Having fenders obviously makes it so that if it's rain or shine, or if you go through a little muddy patch, you're not going to get covered in mud. So they make a nice commuter bike as well. A lot of people think that these guys are going to be heavy. This particular model isn't that heavy because they're using aluminum frame, aluminum rims, so a lot of high quality materials to keep the bike lightweight. And by not having a front suspension fork on the bike, you actually make the bike quite a bit lighter by not having the suspension up here, because suspension adds probably easily 3.5 pounds to a regular fork. Okay, so a few of the other things. This is a 7-speed bike, so you've got 7 gears on the back here to choose between, and the last one is what they call a mega range, so it gives you a really easy gear to climb up those hills. So you've just got one shifter on the bike. One way makes it easier, the other way makes it harder. It's a very simple bike to ride. So people that aren't as technical and aren't focused on gearing and stuff like that, all they need to know is, do I want this to pedal easier and slower, or do I want this to pedal a little harder and faster? So the Townie style bike is just a really fun bike to ride. Other than that, there's some features that make it very, very comfortable, like the saddle here. The saddle you're going to notice is kind of typically called a beach cruiser saddle or a comfort saddle. And saddles like this, you don't have to wear like riding shorts or padded shorts or anything like that with, because they're very, very comfortable. It's kind of like sitting on a stool. You've got a lot of support and a lot of width to the saddle to sit on. So if you are riding only every once in a while, you kind of won't have that sore butt feeling from a saddle that has this much coverage. The other things that are going to happen is up here in the handlebars, you're going to see that the handlebars are quite high rise. The part of the reason for that is styling. The other part of the reason for that is just to get the rider more upright. It's a very natural position for people to sit like this. It's like you're sitting in your dining room chair or sitting on a bench. Whereas the standard bike position is much more of this position where you're reached out, you're piked at the waist, you've got your core kind of holding and your back muscles holding you in position. It's a lot more relaxing to be riding like this. So that's what they're going after on this style of bike, is more of a relaxed, comfortable position. So these higher rise handlebars help with that. Also a longer head tube. is part of it. So they make everything longer and sit up more in the front end of the bike. You even have an adjustable stem here. This stem can be raised and lowered to kind of fine tune that height for you. So you're going to sit a little bit more upright on this bicycle. This bike is using a V-brake, which is plenty strong for it. V-brakes are are a type of rim brake. They've got a lot of leverage because of this arm, so they're quite powerful, and they will stop the bike without any problems in kind of like street and city conditions. They're a very solid brake. I remember back in the day when I was racing downhill, my first downhill bike had V-brakes on it. Like the disc brakes weren't common and V-brakes were. So I actually had a downhill bike that had V-brakes. So V-brakes are definitely powerful enough to stop a bike. Something else that I'm going to go over that's kind of unique to this bike is up in the front of this bike, down at the hub, you've got a dynamo front hub. So if you can see these wires here that are plugged into the hub has the ability to power the lights on this bike. So this bike has a front light here and a rear light back on the fender here. And the dynamo hub has the ability, as you're riding, to power that so that if you get caught out a little bit late at night, you're going to be safe. You're going to have a rear light and a front light to see where you're going. Kickstand is kind of one of the things that come usually stock on this style of bike, and rightly so. It's just kind of like that cruising around. You might want to stop and take a look at something. You might be shopping. You might be doing whatever on it. So kickstand is nice to have on it. And then one of the big draws to this style of bike is the styling. So they come in a lot of different colors and a lot of different configurations. And then after you buy the bike, you can customize it with lots of different stuff. You can put a rack on it to be able to carry groceries. You can put all sorts of things like bells and just all sorts of little accessories to accessorize the bike and kind of make it yours. Baskets on the front are popular on this kind of style. People carry their dogs in the baskets. There's baskets that are specifically designed for that, but there's a heap load of accessories. Kind of whatever you want to carry on your bike, there's usually an accessory for it. I've even seen down south, there's surfboard carriers that people mount to these things. So you can actually mount a surfboard and carry a surfboard on your beach cruiser or your townie style bike. But they're a very versatile bike. They're fantastic on pavement. The place where these guys you're not going to want to take them is once the roads start to get really rough. Can you take it on a gravel road? Absolutely, not a problem. What's going to limit you is the rattling. So when you find that you're just getting rattled silly on the bike, that's probably where the bike shouldn't be. Whereas it can handle a little bit of light duty off-road, and it can handle obviously any asphalt or paved trail or the roads and streets in town. So that kind of gives a little bit of a go over on the Townie. We're going to kind of slide this guy aside. And we're going to pull this guy out. So this guy has a little bit of a different theory on it. And this guy, what I would call this is much more towards the comfort style of bikes. So absolutely everything on this bike is designed to make you more comfortable. So right from the seat that we already talked about, like a saddle that is nice and big and supportive to allow you not to wear padded shorts, to high-rise handlebars in that really upright position, very similar to the Townie in terms of that. This bike doesn't utilize flat foot technology. That's something that the Townie has, and that they've designed, and that's what they run with. Whereas this bike has more gearing on it, so that's an option for you to be able to have a little bit more gearing. So if you're in a little bit more hilly terrain and you're just like, man, I want a bike that's super comfortable, but I am still going to ride up plenty of hills and going to commute to work or whatever on it, this bike would be able to handle that type of thing. This bike runs disc brakes, so the disc brakes are down on the wheel here. A disc brake is just a little bit more powerful than a V-brake, so it's going to have a little bit more strength to it in comparison to a V-brake. It also has more modulation, and what modulation means is that the brake, you can feel the brake engage a lot smoother, so that it's not as much of an on-off feeling. You feel it, and it progressively, the brake grabs. Whereas with a V-brake, you have a rubber pad on an aluminum rim, and when rubber grabs onto the aluminum rim, it can kind of be a little bit of a jerky stop. Whereas with disc brakes, it's a metallic pad on a metallic disc, very similar to a car, and the engagement of it is very smooth, so that you don't get a jerky braking style out of disc brakes. They're a little bit smoother that way. Another interesting feature that this bike has is a suspension post. So down here on the bike, you've got a little bit of suspension built in. As I push down, you can see the seat moving up and down, so that as you roll over bumps, it's not going to give you any performance benefits, but it's going to give you some comfort benefits. As you hit bumps, you're not going to have that coming up through your back and feeling that each one of those bumps. Another interesting thing that this bike has is, if you look at the pedals are designed that you don't have to be wearing like bike-specific shoes. You could wear a pair of flip-flops on this bike and be quite comfortable pedaling it. It's a bigger pedal. It doesn't have a lot of claws or grips on it, because mountain bikes, you'll find, will have very aggressive pedals to grip the bottom of your shoe because you're bumping and thumping down trails. Whereas with this style, it's a little bit less aggressive, so that if you do slip off the pedal, you're not going to lose a whole bunch of shin skin to the pedal. Some of the other features on this bike is it's running a bigger balloon tire. So by running a bigger balloon tire, that, believe it or not, is suspension for your bike, because you can run it at a little bit lower air pressure, and then as you hit those frost heaves or bumps or whatever you're encountering out on your bicycle ride, the tire is going to absorb that, and you're not going to get as much shock in through your body. If you take a look at this little thing right here, it's kind of cool. You're used to these things being valve caps or covers for your tube. This one is special. This one, if you can see down at the very bottom here, it turns green right there. And what happens is that turns green when the tire has enough pressure in it. If the tire doesn't have enough pressure in it, you're going to see red in that little clear area. So it's actually a valve cap that tells you whether your tire pressure is okay or not. So for those people that don't want to think about tire pressure, don't want to have to count on their memory, they can just take a quick look at it, and the front and the rear tires both have those valve caps that immediately when you look at them, you know, yeah, I have enough air pressure in this tire, or no, I don't have enough air pressure in this tire. So kind of a cool little feature that's on this bike. Another little feature that's kind of neat is up here on the grip. So the grip of this bike is a body geometry grip, is what Specialized calls it. And body geometry basically means that it fits your body better. On your hand right here, you have something called the ulnar nerve. And running down there, if you pinch that on the handlebar, or basically on a narrower bar without as much support, you can actually pinch that nerve a little bit, and it makes your hands go numb. I don't know if you've ever felt that out on a ride, but most cyclists have felt that out on a ride. And with this bigger paddle here, it's got a bigger paddle, it allows the ulnar nerve to be a little bit more padded, and the pressure to be dispersed over a bigger area, so that it creates a little bit more comfort there. So two things kind of come into play here. One, the little bit bigger surface area, and B, the body position that's a little bit more upright, so you're not pushing as hard on the handlebars, helps with that numb hands thing. Because if there's a couple things that cyclists complain about, it's going to be lower back from kind of piking at the waist a lot. That's something that's unique to kind of like your higher end bikes and your trail bikes. It gets you in the right position for riding a little bit more aggressively, whereas those people that don't want to ride more aggressively, they're definitely better off on a bike like this, it's just going to be more comfortable on a bike like this if you're not going to be riding aggressive trails. You're going to be a lot more comfortable in that upright position. So you've got the upright position helping you so that you're not putting as much weight on your hands, and that extra little paddle there supporting your hand a little bit better. And when you kind of grab a hold of it, it's all ergonomic. It kind of makes you fit to the bike quite well. You know what? I think we've gone over quite a few features on like the Townie beach cruiser style or comfort bikes. If you have any more questions, pop down to your local bike shop. They'll be happy to answer questions and kind of get a bike that's suited to what you want and what you need, and get you set up. Thanks for watching. This has been another episode of Gear Up. Hi, I'm Mike Stephen and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about electric bikes. Electric bikes have become very popular for a lot of reasons. One reason is simply that people can use them as a second vehicle in the house to get to and from work, to pick up some groceries, to do stuff like that. The other side of it is just fun fitness, because with electric bikes, one of the misconceptions is that most electric bikes are just a throttle. Well, they're not. They're what's called a pedal assist. And pedal assist electric bikes are going to allow you to still get a workout, but they're not going to drain you or make those hills really tough and really challenging. They're gonna kind of level the playing field when it comes to climbing hills and the tougher parts of biking. So you're gonna get people that maybe have health issues that still want to ride with their friends. Hey, that's another great option. You're gonna have people that maybe aren't really bikers. They just want to get outside and get some fresh air. You're going to get people like that interested in electric bikes. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over two different electric bikes here. We're going to go over first more of a commuter style one, and then we're going to go over a mountain style one. So with a commuter style bike, you've got more along the lines of things like fenders, racks to be able to carry gear on. You've also got lights on the bike. So the lights are actually wired right into the battery, so you don't have to think about putting batteries in the unit, because your main battery here is going to be what's feeding the lights, the front and the back. You've got a center drive motor system. Center drive is kind of the system that has won out. So there used to be, or there still is, but rear wheel drive and front wheel drive. Now it's gone to center drive where the motor is into the center. It's just a much more efficient, much more reliable system. People will ask a lot of times, how far will these things go? Most of the higher quality ones have a range of about 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers in kind of like the eco mode, because these bikes have several different modes of operation. You can be anywhere from like an eco mode, which is kind of takes care of the extra weight of the bike, because e-bikes are a little bit heavier with a battery and a motor on them. So it takes care of the extra weight and makes you about 10% faster than you'd regularly be. So that mode is quite popular, believe it or not. People operate in that mode quite often because it's kind of like you when you were 19, just a little bit faster, a little bit fitter. As you move up through the modes, it'll just generate more power or put more power to the motor as you apply more pressure to the pedals. It's sensitive to the pedals. The motor is sensitive to the pedals, so it's very intuitive. The bike will actually accelerate when you want to pedal and accelerate. And if you've eased off the pedals, the motor will also ease off. So it's a very natural feeling. There's not a lot of jerky movements on an electric bike or on a well-designed electric bike. So a lot of people will be or some people I should say, are kind of afraid of, oh, will it be too fast? Will I be able to stop? Will I be able to do that stuff? It's just like riding a regular pedal bike, only you feel like it's doing some of the work. So it's very intuitive to just a regular bike. It feels like a regular bike, only a little bit faster. With these guys, you're going to see a lot of times you're going to see disc brakes on them, just simply because disc brakes are very common in the industry now on bikes. And with the extra bit of weight, it's not a bad idea to have a disc brake on an electric bike. These happen to be a hydraulic disc brake, so you can have cable actuated or hydraulic. This happens to be a hydraulic actuated brake. What else can we go over on these guys? Some of these ones will come with an integrated kickstand for a commuter style bike. I think kickstands are fantastic. For mountain bikes, I'm not a big fan of them. It's just something else that'll rattle around when you're riding in the mountain trails. But for a commuter bike, having a nice solid kickstand to be able to load your groceries on it or be able to park it where you're going to park it is fantastic. The batteries are all removable off of e-bikes. And what you're going to find is most people are not going to remove the battery to charge it, but you can. Basically, what majority of people that I've talked to are doing, and what I do myself, is I just kind of pull into the garage or pull into the any space where you have a 110 kind of plug-in a plug, and you plug it into the wall, plug it into the bike. It's there's a little charge port on this side of the battery, and it's just a little port like this that you just plug into. It's really quite simple. So to charge the bike is very easy. This bike has a little bit of suspension on it. It's, again, not designed for full-on mountain trails, but a little bit of suspension to be able to offer you some cushioning over frost heaves, bumps. And can this bike handle a little bit of gravel? Absolutely. So this bike, even though it's not a mountain bike, can handle a little bit of gravel without a doubt. There's all sorts of styles of e-bikes, anywhere from a road bike, like a full-on road bike you can get in these days, all the way up to full suspension, aggressive downhillish bikes, more like enduro kind of bikes that people are using instead of shuttles. I'm going to put this guy aside, and we're going to talk a little bit about the mountain bike now. There isn't quite as much to say about the mountain bike, but because quite simply, it's a mountain bike that just is got some e-power into it. One thing that I've noticed definitely with mountain biking and e-bikes is that, again, talking about those power settings that you have, being able to adjust those power settings is definitely key and essential. I find that the upper modes, the really powerful modes, aren't really needed in a mountain bike, simply because it gets a little bit too aggressive or a little bit too jerky for the acceleration. They're great for pavement and stuff like that if you want to getting up to the trails and stuff like that, whereas I kind of back it down into the middle of the road, which gives you a better range, and it just feels more comfortable and fluid out in the trails. So playing with those power modes and finding what works for you makes a lot of sense on the mountain bike. So I would definitely recommend getting something with the ability to adjust your power modes. So it's very similar to the other bike in that it's a center drive system. So the motor is sitting down in this area right here, and it attaches to the crank, and that's where you get your power from, is right down here. As you come up the frame here, you've got your battery. Your battery is basically what holds all your energy so that you can go down, and it has a range of in the ballpark of 100 kilometers is what they're saying on average. That is just like a tank of gas. It's variable depending on how steep the terrain is that you're on, how heavy you are, how much you're pedaling, what mode you're in, all that kind of stuff. But 100 kilometers is kind of like a safe one on eco mode. Some of the other things that are different on this mountain bike is the suspension is much beefier. So you've got a little bit more travel in the suspension, so the shock will move more over bigger bumps, and it's a little bit more solid, so it won't flex quite as much in that kind of scenario. Touching on disc brakes really quickly. Disc brakes are down here on the wheel. And this is a hydraulic disc brake, so it's got quite a bit of power to be able to stop the bike. Because the bikes are a little bit heavier and you might be moving a little bit quicker, it's nice to have that extra security of a hydraulic disc brake. So this guy runs a little bit bigger tire, so it's running a 2.6 tire. So what that means is that it's just a little bit wider, a little bit taller, so that it'll have amazing traction and amazing climbability. Because you're not as worried about efficiency, the weight doesn't matter of an e-bike because the motor's going to take care of that weight. It won't affect you even at the eco mode. And basically with a mountain style bike, what you're going to find is that those hills that were really difficult to climb are going to be a lot easier to climb. What's going to make you not make it up hills is more your technical ability than the bike's ability, because these things are able to climb some pretty impressive hills. The other thing is, as I touched on briefly, is you won't find yourself in the red zone as much. And what I call the red zone is the zone where you're just fighting for your breath on a climb and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is a climb almost over. With an e-bike, you're gonna, it kind of levels the trails. The uphills, you can actually be going in the ballpark of 25 kilometers an hour uphill, which is kind of amazing. So you can actually be berming or cornering a mountain bike uphill, which is pretty crazy. It's a pretty neat feeling. Some people ask, well, isn't the point of mountain biking to get some fitness and stuff like that? So why would you ride an e-mountain bike? My simple answer is anywhere from, instead of shuttling up a place like Bootleg, you could ride the mountain bike up to the top of the trails and then ride back down. So you could actually shuttle laps. So that's one reason. Another reason is to do more trails. When I get off my e-bike after riding in the trails, I am actually quite tired. If I've gone for as long as I want to go, I'm quite tired. I just haven't gone into that red zone as often, but I'm still tired. So e-bikes don't cancel out exercise, and the more you push into the pedals, the faster they go. So they're kind of addictive that way. You just want to go a little faster. So I think I've gone over a majority of what I need to say about e-bikes, but if you have any questions about e-bikes, pop down to your local bike shop. They'll be happy to answer stuff and help you out and maybe even let you take it out on a little test ride to see what it feels like. Thanks for watching. This has been Gear Up with Mike Stephen.